Alright, so going into episode 4, the narrow escape plan, um, we're taking some somewhat different and somewhat familiar approaches, starting with starting off immediately with this opening where it starts in the opening and then it goes all the way through the episode. This Peter and the Wolf comparison. Where we have, I'm pretty positive that was Billy Bob Thornton narrating, which would make perfect sense since they brought Martin Freeman back to narrate an episode of the second season. And we're kind of equating each character to a character in Peter and the Wolf as, who I'm assuming Thornton, takes us through the whole, each character is assigned an instrument in the orchestra and so on. I did feel kind of immediately that this was a pretty, like the second we saw, like, Emmett and it says the bird and then Ray and the duck and, Michael Stuhlbarg was the grandfather and then Gloria as Peter, and obviously David Thewlis is the wolf. It did feel, like, extremely on the nose. Like, it's one of those things that you want to say, oh, that's really cool, I can't wait to see what they do with this. But it's kind of like, it felt very, kind of in your face with its symbolism, especially since it's pretty clear, I think it's clear they're using it not only to kind of establish this and make the parallels, but also for the sake of foreshadowing. But I don't really think this comparison lets us know anything we didn't already think was going to be the directions we were going. But I guess it's still nice for the sake of what I really liked was when we went into it and then just as the music starts it goes into the theme of the show. I thought that was really cool because I don't think I've mentioned this yet. I really love I think Jeff Russo is the composer. What he's done with the score here, where it takes from it's pretty clear it's like a rendition of what Carter Burwell did in the movie. But it's still his own thing. I actually think, as iconic as Burwell's score is, that I like the theme for the show more than I like the main theme from the movie. And I like that it's actually, they seem to be using it more in this season than they have in previous seasons. So I did really like once it got to that point, like that was kind of worth it, the whole Peter and the Wolf setup, even though that's going to probably be a continuing thing and was through this episode. So, and I do, and we do also kind of get this new trait of David Thewlis, where he pukes pretty much every time he eats something. I noticed that after the Bell thing and the beach thing in the last episode, we're still on Barton Fink a little bit. Our Barton Fink carryovers, where he, our first shot of Thewlis puking is from outside the stall, and he lays down the cloth to kneel on, like John Mahoney did in Barton Fink. But then afterwards, we pretty much, it kind of goes into its own thing and goes mostly back into the original Fargo's territory. And we start off with this scheme immediately that is had to have been, I don't know how it works as a plot point, but as an exercise in acting, had to be really interesting for Ewan McGregor, and it was really fun to watch him do this, where obviously he's established himself as two different characters with Emmett and Ray, with two completely different appearances. And I imagine, and I've heard from actors basically, that it's the appearance and what you do to yourself and like everything down to the costumes and all that has a lot to do with how you get into character. So we have Ewan McGregor playing Emmett, and then we have Ewan McGregor playing Ray, who has to still play Ray playing Emmett while looking like Emmett. I can only imagine what the acting process for that had to be. Even though, yeah, I do kind of wish they could have explored more into that, and kind of played with that a little more and had more, like, situations he'd have to get into, I guess, to kind of stay in Emmett's character, but it's really just for the whole dog's ashes thing, which I don't. But it as like watching an acting exercise. That was very interesting. and then we kind of get to bring in more. I've noticed I'm kind of afraid that Mary Elizabeth Winstead is going to kind of get the kind of the shit end as far as what she gets to do, because for a while there, it seemed like she was going to be one of the more interesting characters, which I'm sure she, still can be. We still got 6 episodes left. But in the meantime, it seems more like she's kind of a device as opposed to really getting to go into the kind of the motivations of this character and where she may go. Because I still feel like her relationship with Ray is not going to be... it's not as the two of us as the way he sees it than the way she sees it. So I'm very curious to see what becomes of that. But in the meantime, it just kind of seems like she's just kind of here to kind of, I guess motivate his character, but not as much her own thing as she was in, say, the first 2 episodes. I assume it's going to eventually mean something when she passed by Gloria, when they crossed paths. I do think it would have been much more, like, just having Winstead walk by, and then just kind of having it in there, instead of making it a huge deal that goes into slow-mo. Because I imagine however many episodes it takes down the road, at some point it's going to occur that seeing her there is it's going to trigger something that's really useful to her. Though what exactly brings us to that, I guess, will be what we get to find out, which, well, we seem to be headed in that direction already from the end of this one, where everything is being pieced together. You gotta wonder exactly how wrong it's all gonna go when it feels like all the pieces are coming together in episode 4 out of 10. But as I said before, this series so far, good as it is, with seasons 1 and 2, they do have a tendency to, I feel like, stretch out a couple more episodes than necessarily need to, so... But we'll give it the benefit of the doubt and see where exactly it goes. As I said before, it's really hard to kind of... Like with the whole Peter and the Wolf scenario, it's kind of hard to gauge exactly if something's a good idea or not when you don't know the full picture. We're just going an episode at a time. But you just kind of have to trust. You kind of have to trust them that everything we're seeing right now is at least for some kind of purpose, because I've noticed this season does have a lot to do with, it seems more focused on the Flash than it does kind of progressing a story, and kind of, playing with these character quirks, which you could argue is, as long as you have great and interesting characters, you hardly need a story as long as they are engaging enough. But you could argue that, but at the same time, I feel like that the whole idea of the show really is to evoke the Coen brothers. And what the Coen brothers have always been brilliant with is being able to do both. They have these characters that are just... that could really... don't even need a story around them for you to be engaged by them. They can just exist, and your eyes will be glued to them. But what they can also do is put these characters in a story that's worth telling. Even if it's the most mundane thing ever, like Burn After Reading. Burn After Reading is just idiots being idiots with this whole... I guess you could say it's a MacGuffin, really. Where it's just Osborne Cox's memoirs, and they think it's this whole spy thing, and then the whole thing just goes on that, and it's so mundane and ridiculous. But it's so mundane and ridiculous that that's what's engaging about it. That's why you keep watching these idiot characters get involved in all this. So they always have a way of combining the two, and there's obviously they can make, really, really good stories like, say, No Country for Old Men or Miller's Crossing or whatever. Yeah, this one seems to be having trouble combining the two. It seems a lot more focused on the whole kind of the surface appearance than kind of what's going on. And the whole themes, there's this one also seems to, I think I mentioned this before, they seem to have spend a lot more time kind of spelling out what exactly their themes are and what exactly the symbolism is, as opposed to, say, Season 1 or particularly Season 2, where they just kind of let it be in there and people kind of had to look for it. But, yeah, but still, once again, it's still early enough. We're not quite halfway yet. After the next episode, we will be officially halfway. Then maybe we can start kind of saying, maybe this will go somewhere, maybe it won't. But even so, we still have our character. I guess you could say one of our main. Well, I want to say our main character, but I guess that could be a number of people. But talking Gloria, I don't know. I don't know what they want to do with her. Because now that they've introduced Winnie, who seems like much more... I don't know. I feel like I don't know the reactions to this episode yet, but I'm going to have a feeling that a lot of people would maybe agree. Maybe Winnie should be our main character in this, as opposed to Gloria, because she seems much more... It's not necessarily anything that Carrie Coon is doing wrong, but the writing is kind of... It seems like Gloria's really, really, really supposed to be building to something, but at this rate, I don't really know what that is, because they keep doing this thing where, she's having trouble with motion sensors, where she can't seem to get through the automatic door, and then when she's in the bathroom where she meets Winnie, she can't get the sink or the soap to work, while Winnie does it just immediately. And it's like, maybe it's supposed to be symbolic, like, she feels so insignificant or something, but then maybe there's something else, or maybe there's going to be a payoff, or maybe it's just a random character quirk, which honestly I think might be the most likely, that there's really nothing to it. It's just something that happens to her. I don't know. They could be trying to do something with the whole, maybe she feels so insignificant she feels invisible or something. Something really obvious like that. But once again, I guess we'll have to see. And I don't know what it is between the cop in the last episode and meeting Winnie. What it is with Gloria running into people that love to talk about their bodily functions. I don't know if that's like a running joke or if it's just what the writers decide to go with. I don't know, but, I don't know, but, there's a lot more with Gloria to be explored, and I really kind of hope they eventually get there, but I guess we'll see. But as I was saying before, she's basically supposed to be our Marge Gunderson this season, and all the other characters around her are significantly more interesting. Like, we get more of Michael Stuhlbarg, who I've been praising. What I really love that they did with Stuhlbarg, and then later, or earlier, I can't remember which order it was in, with Ray, where one is being interviewed by Winnie and one's being interviewed by Gloria, and the way it plays out where when Ray is interviewed, it actually feels a lot like when Marge first interviewed Jerry, when he was cooperative and he was kind of trying to be laid back, but he was certainly acting suspicious. And then when Stuhlbarg was interviewed, it was more like Jerry's second interview, where he's really erratic and he's like really defensive, and so I really like the way they were able to kind of play with that and kind of call back to the movie as well, while also actually pushing the story along. And then there is, and of course, as I was saying, I can't praise David Thewlis enough. I love that he got a nice, big, meaty scene here at Emmett's house. I do feel like that could be building up a bit more than it is. Like, I felt the scene between Emmett and David Thewlis seemed to be lacking something. Like, I feel like while watching it, like, kind of like when, I don't know how many of you saw or liked Black Mass, but if you know me, you know how much I love it. The scene where David Thewlis goes to Emmett's house should have been very close to the scene in Black Mass when Johnny Depp has dinner at Joel Edgerton's house. And he's just really, really threatening and this really, really imposing presence, and there's just this ongoing dread as it goes, and then like goes upstairs to his wife and shit. I feel like the scene probably should have been something like that, but it just kind of felt like another scene after a while. So that scene didn't quite hit as much as I would have thought. Like, if you had told me beforehand, there's a scene where David Thewlis goes to fucking Emmett's house for dinner and just invites himself there, I probably would have been expecting a bit more of a harder punch than what it is we saw, but still a strong scene in its own right, though. Mostly given to the acting. Um, so yeah, I think that's most of the things I wanted to discuss. So it'll be very interesting to see where we go and if this, Peter and the Wolf thing keeps up, which, like I was saying, it kind of seems like without the Alloy, we kind of already knew we were headed in a similar direction. Um, so yeah, so the main thing here is we could be stronger on story, and they could maybe tone down their flashiness just a little bit in their quite obvious symbolism a lot of the time. I do think you can have a whole lot of great characters and, just great different things to throw in there to kind of shake things up, but don't be afraid to go to your story a little bit. Like, I know there's seems to be this stigma about, if something sticks to the story too much, there's not enough creativity behind it, or it's not artful enough or something, but I mean, that's really, you want to use these great characters and these, visual ideas and all this other stuff. When you're progressing a story, that really does add a whole other layer and makes it much more engaging. As opposed to just saying, hey, here's this great stuff, there's also a very thin storyline going on here. So yeah, don't be afraid to, try to get into the story a little more. I guess that's what I'm really saying. So, yes. I guess we'll see what happens when we get halfway through next week. In the meantime, that's about it. I'll be reviewing King Arthur tomorrow, and then there'll be a nice adventurous versus after that. Once again, if the interest is there. So. Yeah, that's what we have to look forward to. Hopefully we have something to look forward to, so that's it.